The galaxy was quiet that night, a silence that made the stars look like distant candles in an endless sea. Across the void, great hospital ships of Earth moved slowly, shining like lanterns of mercy. These ships were not weapons. They did not carry soldiers, missiles, or war machines. Instead, they carried healers, men and women who had dedicated their lives to saving others no matter their species. Earth's medics had earned respect across many worlds. They treated wounded soldiers, sick children, even enemy civilians left behind in broken wars. Some alien empires hated humanity's armies, but no one dared question the medics. They were seen as neutral, sacred in their mission, or at least that was the belief until the night the sky burned. Without warning, a fleet of alien warships dropped from hyperspace. Their arrival ripped through the calm darkness with fire and thunder. Alarms screamed across the medical convoy. The lead hospital ship, Hope of Terra, sent out a desperate signal. "We are unarmed. We carry only healers and patients. Do not fire." But the enemy did not listen. Beams of plasma cut through the ships like blades of light. Hulls tore open, spilling air and screams into the cold emptiness. Fires erupted inside wards filled with children. Doctors clung to their patients, trying to save them even as explosions shook the walls. The attackers showed no mercy. A young medic named Mara pressed her hand against a shattered window, her voice shaking as she whispered into the radio. "Why are they doing this? We only heal." But no answer came, only the thunder of weapons. One by one, the hospital ships exploded. Bright blossoms of fire lit up the black sky, drifting debris scattering like ashes in the wind. Out of 12 ships, only 3 managed to flee, their engines sparking as they jumped into hyperspace. The survivors carried a message that would echo across Earth. Their final transmission was raw with grief and horror. They attacked the healers. They burned the doctors. The medics are gone. On Earth, people wept when the news reached them. Entire families had sons and daughters among the fallen. The images were worse than any nightmare. Bodies floating among twisted steel. The red cross of Earth's medics shattered and burning. But in the silence after grief, something else began to rise. Rage. The galaxy had crossed a line no one thought possible. They had not attacked soldiers. They had not targeted weapons. They had attacked mercy itself. Inside Earth's military command, silence filled the great chamber as the recordings played. Generals sat stone-faced, their fists clenched. Civilian leaders whispered in disbelief. For a moment there was only shock. Then the silence broke. "This was not an attack on soldiers," one commander said, his voice trembling with fury. "This was an attack on humanity's soul." Across the stars, the enemy fleets celebrated their victory. To them it was a strike of power, a warning to Earth that no one was untouchable. They believed humanity would retreat, broken by the loss of their healers. They thought fear would spread. But they were wrong. In hidden prisons on Earth, in black sites the galaxy had forgotten, there were names whispered in fear. Men and women once called monsters, soldiers so brutal in war that even Earth had locked them away. They were war criminals, chained not because they lost, but because their victories had been too dark, too merciless. For years, they had been sealed away. For years, Earth had sworn never to release them. But now, with the ashes of their healers floating in space, a question began to spread like fire. If mercy is destroyed, what answer does humanity give? And in the silence of the council chamber, the first whispers came. Dangerous whispers. Whispers that made even hardened generals shift in their seats. Unleash the darkest warriors. The first strike had begun not only a war of weapons, but a war of vengeance. The galaxy had celebrated too soon. For in attacking the healers, they had awakened something far worse, something that would soon walk free again. The survivors of the first strike returned to Earth broken and trembling. Their ships were scarred, their voices shaking as they told the story of how the medics were slaughtered without mercy. The footage they carried was worse than any nightmare. Hospitals burning in the dark void, children crying in the silence of space, and healers holding patients as fire consumed them. When the message spread across Earth, the planet fell into silence. Families stopped in the streets. Soldiers lowered their heads. Even hardened generals clenched their fists as the images replayed across every screen. The galaxy had done something unthinkable. It had struck not at soldiers, but at the very heart of compassion. In the great council hall of Earth, leaders gathered. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with flags of every nation, its floor filled with the hum of whispered rage. At the center sat the High Council, their faces pale and grim. They had fought wars before. They had seen invasions and betrayals. But this attack felt different. It was not only a strike at life. It was a strike at the very idea of humanity's mercy. General Harrow stood, his voice rough like stone. "We have been mocked. They struck the healers because they thought Earth would not fight back. They thought mercy made us weak." He paused, his fist tight. "They were wrong." Others spoke, anger filling their words. Some demanded vengeance through fleets and armies. Others called for negotiation, even though everyone knew the enemy would never listen. The chamber boiled with arguments, but under it all was a truth no one dared say aloud. Earth had something the galaxy feared more than any army. In hidden prisons, buried beneath mountains and locked behind layers of steel, there were men and women who once made the galaxy tremble. They were not ordinary soldiers. They were the darkest part of humanity's history. War criminals, veterans of battles so brutal that their names were whispered like curses. They had been locked away for decades because Earth feared them as much as the galaxy did. These warriors had won wars not by honor but by terror. They had burned fleets, broken empires, and shattered worlds. Even Earth had judged them too dangerous to walk free. And yet now, with the healers dead and the galaxy laughing at humanity's pain, their names returned like ghosts. Counselor Deneva, a woman known for her calm reason, leaned forward. Her voice was quiet, but it cut the chamber like a blade. "If mercy is destroyed, what is left for us to protect? If the galaxy only understands fear, then perhaps fear is what we must give them." The chamber froze. Everyone knew what she meant. Whispers filled the air. The darkest warriors. The very words sent a chill through the hall. They had been the monsters of old wars. Entire alien fleets had surrendered at the sound of their approach. They fought not with honor, but with a cold and ruthless will to destroy. General Harrow's eyes darkened. "We locked them away because we were afraid of them. But maybe it is time we remind the galaxy why it feared humanity." Some protested. "We cannot unleash them. They will not stop."
"They are criminals!"
Others argued, "If we do nothing, we invite the galaxy to strike us again and again." The chamber shook with voices, each one fighting between fear and fury. But above the noise came the survivor's voice. Mara, the young medic who had escaped the massacre, stood in the chamber. Her uniform was torn, her eyes hollow from what she had seen. "They killed doctors who begged for mercy," she whispered. "They burned children who could not fight back. You argue about what is right and what is wrong. But what about us? What about the ones who believed in mercy? Will you let their screams go unanswered?" Her words cut through the arguments. The chamber fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. And then slowly, heads began to nod. The decision was made. Earth would open the prisons. The darkest warriors would walk again, but it came with one condition. The council declared they will not fight for glory. They will not fight for power. They will fight only for vengeance, for the medics, for the healers, for the soul of humanity that was mocked and destroyed. In the cold darkness of a forgotten mountain prison, alarms rang. Doors heavier than warship armor hissed open. Inside, shadows stirred. Figures stepped out, their eyes burning with something deeper than rage. The galaxy had awakened them, and soon it would remember why it once feared Earth. The prison was buried deep beneath black mountains, hidden from the eyes of the world. For decades, its gates had never opened. Few people even remembered it existed, and those who did only spoke of it in whispers. The place was not meant for ordinary criminals. It was built for something darker. Inside its walls lived the people the galaxy once feared more than death itself, the dark warriors of Earth. They were men and women who had fought in old wars, not with honor, but with a ruthless fire that terrified even their allies. They had won battles by breaking every rule of mercy, by striking harder and deeper than anyone thought possible. When the wars ended, Earth did not celebrate them. Instead, Earth locked them away, too dangerous to live among civilians, too unpredictable to be left free. Now, for the first time in years, the alarms of the prison screamed. Gates of steel thicker than warship armor groaned as they slid open. Lights flashed across the dark corridors. Guards stepped back, their faces pale. They had been ordered to release the prisoners, but even they feared what would walk out. One by one, the doors opened. From the first cell stepped a tall figure, his hair gray, his eyes sharp like blades. His name was Cade, once called the Butcher of Orion. He had ended a war in a single night by burning an entire fleet while they begged for surrender. His reputation had spread across the stars, making whole planets whisper his name in fear. Now, after years in silence, he smiled as if he had been waiting for this day. Another figure followed, a woman named Selene. She was slender, her eyes cold and calm, but behind that stillness was a storm. Once she had been known as the Ghost, a sniper who could kill from miles away without leaving a trace. Entire alien armies believed she was a myth, a shadow invented to scare them. But she was real, and now she walked free again. Cell after cell opened, and the legends returned. Each warrior carried a story written in blood and terror. Each one had been locked away because Earth itself feared what they might do if left uncontrolled. And yet now, Earth called on them once more. When the prisoners reached the main hall, General Harrow stood waiting. His uniform was ironed straight, his face carved in stone. Behind him, armed soldiers filled the chamber, though every one of them looked uneasy. Guns meant nothing here. These warriors did not fear weapons. General Harrow's voice echoed across the hall. You were locked away because you were too dangerous, too ruthless, too feared. But now the galaxy has attacked Earth's medics. They killed our healers, the ones who carried no weapons. They burned mercy itself. The hall was silent, every warrior listening. Harrow's voice grew harder. Earth's armies will fight. Our fleets will strike back. But we need something more. We need the galaxy to remember its fear. And you, he pointed toward them. You are that fear. Cade's lips curled into a grin. So after all these years, Earth finally begs for monsters again. Selene tilted her head, her cold eyes glinting. And if we refuse? Harrow stepped forward. Then you stay in your cages. But if you accept, you will fight not for glory, not for forgiveness, but for vengeance. For the medics who died, for the children who burned, for the soul of humanity that the galaxy mocked. The words hung heavy in the air. Then slowly the warriors nodded, not because they sought redemption, but because they saw purpose. The galaxy had given them a reason to fight again. The council had set one rule. These warriors would be leashed by command, their every action tracked. But everyone in the chamber knew the truth. Once unleashed, no one could truly control them. As the group moved out, whispers spread across Earth. Civilians who heard the news trembled. Some prayed these monsters would save them. Others feared what would be left once they were done. Across alien worlds, rumors began to circulate. The dark warriors of Earth walk again. Panic spread in enemy fleets. Commanders who once celebrated the destruction of the medics now felt ice in their veins. They remembered stories of planets burning overnight, of fleets vanishing without a single survivor. They remembered surrendering not because they were beaten, but because they were terrified. Now those nightmares were awake again. On the edge of space, the warriors were given their ships. They were not large fleets. They did not need them. Each warrior commanded vessels like extensions of their own rage, dark, sharp, and fast. Engines roared as the ships lifted, and for the first time in decades, the galaxy felt the tremor of their return. Cade stood on the bridge of his ship, the stars reflecting in his eyes. His voice was low, almost a whisper. The healers were mercy. They struck mercy. Now let them taste fear. The galaxy had unleashed Earth's darkest weapons, and soon the stars themselves would burn. The first night of their release, the galaxy trembled. The dark warriors were no longer whispers in hidden prisons. They were moving through the void, their ships carrying the same cold silence as the men and women who commanded them. Unlike Earth's regular fleets, full of discipline, rules, and codes, these ships carried something different. Vengeance. The enemy that had destroyed Earth's medics had gathered its fleets again. They believed Earth would come with diplomats or controlled armies. They believed this would be just another war to win, another act of power. They did not expect the shadows that now cut across their scanners. The first strike came without warning. A fleet of alien destroyers patrolled near a burned hospital zone, guarding the very space where the healers had died. Suddenly, alarms screamed as unknown ships tore from hyperspace. They were dark, angular, and sharp, built for one purpose: to kill. At the head of the fleet was Cade, the Butcher of Orion. His ship roared through the enemy line, guns firing without pause. His voice echoed across the comms, calm but merciless. No survivors. The alien ships tried to form ranks, but they were too slow. Cade's ship unleashed a storm of fire. tearing through hulls as if they were paper. Explosions lit the void like a storm of suns. In minutes, the destroyers were nothing but burning debris. Selene, the ghost, struck from the shadows. Her fleet did not fight in open battle. Instead, they slipped behind enemy lines, cutting power to command ships, striking captains in their sleep. By the time alarms rang, she was already gone, leaving nothing but silence and fear. Across the stars, the dark warriors spread. Each carried their own way of war. Some attacked with fire, others with cold precision, but all carried the same message. You killed mercy, now you will face terror. The enemy tried to fight back. They sent fleets larger than anything Earth had faced before. But numbers meant nothing against the warriors who had been bred by darkness. The enemy was used to rules, treaties, and honor. These humans fought with none. Entire star systems burned. Enemy stations fell into silence, their lights cut out as Earth's shadows moved through them. The attackers who had once laughed while hospital ships burned now screamed as they saw their fleets vanish in hours. Word spread fast. Civilian planets begged their leaders to make peace. Soldiers deserted, throwing down their weapons when they heard the Dark Warriors were near. Some worlds surrendered without a single shot fired, not because they were beaten, but because they were too afraid to resist. For the first time in generations, the galaxy remembered its old fear of Earth, not of its armies, not of its leaders, but of its monsters. Yet even as victories piled high, tension spread back on Earth. Families who had once wept for the medics now watched in silence as the Dark Warriors destroyed everything in their path. Some asked if vengeance had gone too far. Others argued it was not far enough. Inside her ship, Selene stared at the stars, her voice cold. We were locked away because you feared us, and now you fear us again. But tell me, was it not fear you wanted to give the galaxy? General Harrow, watching from Earth Command, could not answer. He had unleashed the Dark Warriors because the medics deserved justice. But he knew what everyone feared. Once monsters are free, they do not return to cages. The enemy's last great fleet gathered near the Red Veil Nebula, a region of burning clouds that glowed with fiery light. Thousands of ships prepared for a final defense. They promised their people they would stop the humans here. But when the Dark Warriors arrived, the nebula itself became a graveyard. Cade's voice echoed over open channels, reaching every enemy ship. His tone was quiet, almost gentle. You struck our healers. You mocked our mercy. Now we show you what remains when mercy dies. Then fire swallowed the stars. The battle was not long. It was slaughter. Explosions burned red against the nebula clouds, lighting them like rivers of blood. Enemy ships broke ranks, screaming for retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The Dark Warriors moved like wolves among sheep, tearing apart their prey one by one. When the last ship fell silent, the nebula glowed with the wreckage of thousands. The Dark Warriors had not just won. They had written a message into the stars. Humanity's vengeance was endless. The galaxy shivered. Leaders who had once celebrated the medics' deaths now begged for truce. But the question lingered in every corner of space. Would the Dark Warriors stop? Or had Earth unleashed something that would never rest again? When the last enemy fleet burned in the Red Veil Nebula, silence returned to the stars. Wreckage drifted in the glowing clouds, the remains of thousands of ships turning slowly in the void. To many, it was the sound of victory. To others, it was the sound of something far more dangerous. On Earth, people celebrated at first. Families who had lost sons and daughters among the medics cried tears of justice. They cheered when they saw the images of alien fleets torn apart. News broadcasts called it Earth's greatest revenge. But beneath the joy was a shadow. People whispered in quiet corners, asking the same question: have we gone too far? In the council hall, leaders sat in silence. Their decision had saved Earth from humiliation, but it had also unleashed something they could not control. Reports arrived daily. Alien planets that had nothing to do with the attack surrendered in fear. Fleets abandoned their posts, terrified of rumors that the Dark Warriors were coming. Across the galaxy, the name of humanity was no longer spoken with respect. It was spoken with dread. General Harrow stood before the council, his voice heavy. The mission is complete. The medics have been avenged. The enemy fleet is broken. But I warn you, this victory carries a price. Councillor Deneva leaned forward. The galaxy now fears us. That fear may protect us from attack. Harrow shook his head. Fear fades, and when it fades, all that will remain is hatred. Far from Earth, the Dark Warriors gathered on their ships. They had done what was asked. They had burned the fleets that dared to strike mercy, but none of them looked satisfied. They were not men and women who sought peace. They were killers, shaped by wars long past, given freedom only through blood. Cade, the butcher of Orion, stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the debris drift in silence. His eyes were calm, but deep inside a fire still burned. "We were promised vengeance," he said to his crew, "and vengeance is never enough." Celine the ghost moved like a shadow through her ship's corridors. She spoke to no one. In her mind there was no end to what had begun. She had seen the galaxy break before, and she would see it break again. To her, this was not the end of war. It was the reminder that war never truly ends. When their fleets returned to Earth's command, the Council ordered them back into chains. But the moment those words were spoken, silence filled the chamber. No one truly believed the Dark Warriors would accept cages again. They had tasted freedom. They had tasted blood. Mara, the young medic who had survived the first massacre, stood before them one last time. She had begged for justice. Now she trembled at what she saw. "You gave them back to us," she whispered to the Council. "But what if they never leave?" The galaxy, once united in mocking Earth, now united in fear. Alien leaders sent desperate envoys, pleading for Earth to leash its monsters. Some even offered peace treaties, not out of friendship but out of terror. And so Earth stood at a crossroads. Mercy had been avenged, but at the cost of becoming the very thing they once feared. One night, General Harrow looked out at the stars and spoke quietly, as if confessing to himself. "We unleashed them to honor the dead, but perhaps in doing so we killed something else, the part of humanity that believed in mercy." The Dark Warriors, meanwhile, faded into the void once more. Some vanished into hidden corners of space, mercenaries without masters. Others returned to shadows no one could trace. Their names became legends again, whispered across worlds. Monsters, demons, the black shadow of Earth. But every whisper carried the same warning. Do not strike Earth's healers. Do not touch Earth's mercy. For behind its kindness lies something the galaxy cannot survive. In the end, Earth won. The medics were avenged. The enemy was broken. But the galaxy would forever remember the price of vengeance, the day compassion was buried under fire, and monsters walked free again. And somewhere in the endless silence of space, the Dark Warriors waited, ready for the day the galaxy dared to test humanity once more.